Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping back in time. Think New York City, early 20th century.
Hmm.
A really bustling place, a true melting pot, and specifically Harlem during its Renaissance. Just electric.
Absolutely vibrant.
But amidst all that, the jazz, the culture, there was this kind of quiet spiritual revolution happening, in living rooms, lecture halls, very unassuming places.
That's right. And that's where our main figures come in.
Exactly. We've got Joseph Murphy. Many of you will know him from The Power of Your Subconscious Mind.
A huge bestseller.
Huge. And then there's this, fascinating and slightly mysterious teacher, Abdullah, an Ethiopian rabbi, a mystic.
And some listeners might know Abdullah already as Neville Goddard's teacher.
Right, the one who taught the law of assumption, basically, that your imagination is reality, it creates it.
A pretty radical idea then and now.
Totally. So our mission today for this deep dive is really to unpack the story of how Murphy also met Abdullah.
Yeah, it's not as widely known as the Neville connection.
Not at all. We want to explore the kind of profound esoteric wisdom Murphy picked up from him and really see how that encounter shaped Murphy's own work for decades.
Story of mentorship, hidden wisdom, finding that inner power.
Exactly. Think of this as maybe a shortcut to understanding the surprising roots of a lot of modern self-help ideas, where this power inner transformation really got its start in this, unexpected setting.
Well, Joseph Murphy's journey towards someone like Abdullah, it started way before New York. He was born in Ireland, 1898.
Right, and raised Catholic.
Yeah.
Quite devoutly, I understand.
Very. He even entered a Jesuit seminary, was preparing for the priesthood.
Wow. So what happened? What made him leave that path? It seems like his spiritual curiosity started pulling him elsewhere.
Precisely. There was a really formative experience he had involving healing prayer. It seems to have, opened his eyes to the power of the mind, of faith.
Ah, okay.
And that prompted him to leave the Jesuits. He lands in New York in 1922. He's 24, an immigrant, has a chemistry degree, actually.
It's just strange.
Interesting. Yeah, but this unquenchable spiritual thirst.
And New York back then, especially Harlem in the 20s and 30s. I mean, what an incredible place for someone searching like that. It must have been fertile ground.
Oh, absolutely. It was a real hotbed. New thought, mysticism, that cultural renaissance happening simultaneously.
So what did he do? He had to make a living.
He found work as a pharmacist, used that chemistry background. But his real passion, his evenings, his free time, was just devouring metaphysical teachings.
Like what was he reading or hearing?
He was attending lectures by people like Emmett Fox, a big name in divine science then, part of the New Thought movement.
Okay, positive thinking, mind influencing reality.
Exactly that. He got deep into those ideas, Eastern philosophies too. And then, sometime in the early 1930s, he starts hearing these whispers.
Whispers about
This extraordinary teacher, Professor Abdullah, an African-born rabbi. Word was he had this incredible mastery of Hebrew scripture, deep mystical wisdom, and these, almost uncanny manifestation techniques.
Wow. For someone like Murphy, searching like he was, that must have sounded irresistible.
Totally. You can just picture the scene, can't you? A crisp evening in Harlem. Murphy climbing the stairs to some modest apartment where Abdullah apparently held these gatherings.
Yeah.
He steps inside. Maybe the smell of old books, a bit of incense. And he immediately senses something different. Abdullah's there. Tall, dark-skinned man, radiating this calm authority.
A real presence.
A presence, exactly. Regal self-assurance. The story said he could sit confidently in a segregated opera house, just emanating this power. Murphy knew he'd found someone significant.
And that first meeting? It became legendary, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The stuff of legend. So Murphy introduces himself, and Abdullah just peers at him, really looks at him, and then drops this bombshell sentence.
Which was?
You are one of 6 children.
Whoa. Okay, that would definitely get your attention.
Wouldn't it just? Murphy, understandably, he's taken aback.
Mm-hmm.
He respectfully corrects him, says, actually, I'm one of 5. But Abdullah, just calm, unshakable certainty. He simply repeats it. You are one of 6, he insists, and adds, though he may not know it.
Chilling. I mean, that must have sent a shiver down his spine. A stranger knowing this intimate detail, something he himself didn't even believe.
Deeply unsettling, you'd imagine. Curiosity, unease. He couldn't let it go.
So what did he do? He had to find out.
He eventually writes to his mother, back in Ireland. Delicately asks, was there ever another child?
And the answer?
Complete shock. His mother confirms it. Yes, there had been another son. Born, stillborn. His existence had been kept quiet all those years. Murphy was one of 6.
Wow. Just wow. Abdullah knew something about his life Murphy didn't even know.
It hit him like a bolt of lightning, as the story goes.
I bet. So that moment, realizing Abdullah had this extraordinary insight, what did that do to Murphy's perspective?
Any lingering skepticism just evaporated, instantly, replaced by this profound respect. He realized he wasn't just dealing with an intellectual teacher, but a genuine adept, someone with a higher perception, something that transcended normal time and space.
So that sealed it. That was the beginning of the mentorship.
Undeniably, that was the moment.
So this teacher-student rhythm gets established. Murphy starts visiting Abdullah's place regularly, soaking up the wisdom.
Often alongside Neville Goddard, actually.
Ah, right. The Barbadian dancer turned metaphysician. He was already studying with Abdullah.
For some years, yes.
Yeah.
So you had these two future giants learning together. And Abdullah, sometimes called the Ethiopian rabbi, described as erudite, worldly. There were even rumors he taught Hebrew at Cambridge,
Really? Quite a background.
though hard to verify definitively.
Yeah.
But clearly a man of deep knowledge.
So what was the absolute core of what Abdullah taught? What was the main takeaway?
It boiled down to something deceptively simple. The human imagination is the creator of reality.
Imagination is the creator.
Yes. He often say, there is no cause outside of the arrangement of your own mind. Your inner world dictates the outer. Full stop.
Okay, so if imagination creates reality, how did he tell them to use that, practically speaking?
He insisted you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled.
Assume the feeling.
Exactly. Not just think about it, but feel it. Live mentally as if your desire is already a fact right now. And then you faithfully walk in that assumption. You persist in that feeling until the outer world catches up, until it externalizes.
And that's what Neville Goddard later called the law of assumption.
Precisely that principle, learned directly from Abdullah.
And Abdullah, he had a real knack for these memorable, almost dramatic demonstrations of this, didn't he? The famous Sleep in Barbados story with Neville comes to mind.
Oh, absolutely classic. Neville desperately wanted to go home to Barbados, but had no money, no ticket. Abdullah's instruction was simple, but radical.
What did he say?
He said, every night as you fall asleep, imagine you are already sleeping in your bed in Barbados. Feel the tropical breeze, smell the sea air, be there in your imagination.
Just live it mentally.
Live it. Weeks go by. Neville's doing this, but then one day he tries to talk to Abdullah about the practicalities. How is this possible going to happen?
The how, always the sticking point.
Right. And Abdullah's response was legendary. He basically slammed the door in Neville's face, refused to even discuss the how. Because from Abdullah's perspective, Neville was already there in imagination.
So the how was irrelevant.
Completely. Abdullah famously snapped, who told you that you were going to Barbados? You went to Barbados, and you went first class. And shortly after, Neville received a ticket first class from a relative out of the blue.
Incredible story. So Murphy's watching all this, absorbing these lessons. He must have seen connections to the new thought stuff he'd already studied, his own prayer experiments.
For sure. He recognized parallels. But Abdullah gave it this new depth, this intensity. It wasn't just think positive. It was about a total inner transformation, a shift in consciousness itself.
And Abdullah really stressed absolute faith once you'd made that imaginative assumption, right? No wavering.
Oh, absolutely critical. He used that incredible, very earthy metaphor.
A pregnancy one?
That's the one. There is no such thing as a little pregnancy. If you did it, then you're pregnant. Let the child grow. Any interference will be a miscarriage.
Powerful. So once you've assumed your wish is fulfilled, conceived it in imagination, you cannot entertain doubts or contrary thoughts. That's like an abortion of the manifestation.
Exactly. Protect the conception. Murphy later echoed this constantly. He warned, if you pray for something, assume it's yours, but then you immediately start worrying, fretting about how it will happen.
You negate the prayer.
You negate it. He said, you're like a gardener who plants a seed, believes it will grow, but then digs it up every day to check on it.
Right. You destroy the very thing you want. Abdullah's lesson lived on through him.
Clearly. And it wasn't just techniques. Abdullah's scholarship on Scripture was apparently also mind-blowing for Murphy.
How so? He came from that literal Catholic background.
Exactly. Abdullah interpreted the Bible symbolically, psychologically, not as literal history, but as psychological dramas playing out within the human mind.
So, characters, places, they represent states of consciousness.
Precisely. The kingdom of heaven isn't someplace up there. It's within you. Moses isn't just a historical figure. He represents the mental discipline needed to lead your thoughts out of bondage. Jesus symbolizes the awakened, enlightened imagination itself.
That must have been revolutionary for Murphy, coming from the Jesuits.
Completely reframed everything for him. You can just imagine those study sessions. Neville, maybe more fiery, asking lots of questions. Murphy, perhaps quieter, more scholarly, listening intently, maybe asking about the subconscious, about prayer.
And they were trying these things out, applying the methods.
Quietly experimenting, yes. Visualizing healing, maybe manifesting small things, good fortune. Testing the principles.
And Abdullah's teaching style sounds like it wasn't exactly gentle hand-holding, more like a spiritual boot camp.
That's a good way to put it. He could be blunt,
Mm-hmm.
inscrutable sometimes, not focused on being liked. But his certainty, his absolute unshakable belief in these principles,
Yeah.
that was the real teaching.
The certainty itself was the lesson.
Murphy learned that feeling, that conviction, that full faith. That was the secret ingredient in effective prayer.
So as time went on, Murphy's path and Neville's path, they diverged somewhat, even though they shared this incredible teacher.
They did. Neville struck out as this independent mystic lecturer, always openly crediting my old teacher, Abdullah. Murphy took a slightly different route.
More conventional, in a way.
In a way, he became a new thought minister, eventually ordained in divine science, and he really focused his writing and speaking on the subconscious mind. That became his frame.
But when you look closely, those golden threads from Abdullah are woven all through Murphy's work, just like Neville's.
Absolutely clear. Just beneath the surface terminology. Think about it. Neville, following Abdullah, emphasized imagination as the creator.
Right.
Joseph Murphy taught that the subconscious mind shapes our world.
But are they really that different, or just two sides of the same coin?
Exactly. Murphy often used that famous metaphor. The subconscious is like a garden.
You are the gardener of your mind.
Your subconscious will accept and bring forth anything you impress upon it, good or bad. So the core idea is identical. Inner causation is absolute. What happens inside determines what happens outside. That's pure Abdullah.
Right. No independent external cause. It all starts in the mind, whether you call it imagination or subconscious.
Yes. And look at the practical application. Abdullah drilled Neville, live from the end. Feel and think from the state of the wish already fulfilled.
And Murphy taught.
Murphy taught what he called scientific prayer. You get into a quiet, drowsy state.
Which sounds a lot like Neville's state akin to sleep, which he also got from Abdullah.
Very similar state, yes. And in that state, Murphy said, you affirm your desired outcome as if it's already done. You feel the reality of it.
And then, crucially,
You drop it. No worry. No anxiety, no checking. Murphy constantly used that analogy, don't be the farmer digging up the seed.
which is Abdullah's pregnancy metaphor again, basically. Don't interfere. Have faith.
It's the same core instruction. Faith is a sustained assumption. You hold to the inner reality, undisturbed by what your senses might be telling you right now.
And the specific techniques, too, they echo each other, don't they?
Strikingly, Abdullah gave Neville very concrete methods, like sleep in Barbadoses. Murphy's books are famous for being packed with specific techniques.
The mirror technique, affirmations, visualization, and that sleepy state, writing things down.
Exactly. Scripting. Murphy's focus on imprinting the subconscious with these techniques, that clearly reflects Abdullah's practical how-to approach. It wasn't just abstract philosophy.
And it's really important to stress neither Neville nor Murphy tried to hide their source. They didn't claim they invented this stuff out of thin air.
No, both gave credit. Neville, very openly and fondly, always talked about my teacher, that wise old Ethiopian.
And Murphy, maybe a bit more sparingly in his popular books.
Perhaps a bit more sparingly in the mass market books. But in interviews and other contexts, he explicitly cited meeting Professor Abdullah in New York as a pivotal turning point. He noted Abdullah's knowledge of scripture, his grasp of this mental science of belief.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it? For decades, the world knew Murphy and Neville, but Abdullah himself remained largely unknown. He didn't seem to seek the limelight.
No books, no public profile beyond those who knew him directly. Yet through these two students, his core teachings reached millions upon millions.
It really is this chain of inspiration, as you called it.
Definitely. Neville's branch emphasized maybe the mystical side, the feeling of unity with the divine through imagination. Murphy's branch framed it more in terms of the subconscious mind's power, the law of faith, maybe slightly more psychological language.
But both branches bear the exact same fruit.
The same essential message. We create our reality from within. Unwavering belief, sustained assumption. That's the key.
And you can really see how modern law of attraction ideas, the stuff you hear everywhere today,
Yeah.
so much of it echoes these concepts.
Whether people realize it or not, consciously or unconsciously, they're often tapping into ideas that trace right back to Abdullah's teachings in that Harlem apartment. Figures like Wayne Dyer explicitly credited Neville and Murphy, continuing the chain.
So after those foundational years in New York, Murphy's life really took off. He moved across the country. His influence spread globally through his writings.
That's right. Mid-1940s, he heads to Los Angeles, becomes the minister of the Divine Science Church there, builds a really substantial following.
And by the 50s, 60s, he's a major figure.
One of the biggest names in New Thought. Positive thinking, lecturing internationally, writing dozens of books. And then, of course, 1962, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind hits.
And just sells millions. Still sells today. It influenced generations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And through all that success, that fame, the memory, the imprint of Abdullah's mentorship, it quietly endured.
It wasn't forgotten.
No. His wife, Dr. Jean Murphy, helped ensure that later accounts of his life acknowledged Abdullah's role. And even in interviews Murphy himself gave in the late 1970s near the end of his life.
He still talked about Abdullah.
Explicitly. Described meeting him, confirmed it was a defining moment in his spiritual journey. You could almost hear the gratitude, the awe, as he recalled Abdullah knowing about the 6 children, that proof of something beyond the physical senses.
And Abdullah himself, what happened to him? He seems to fade from the picture.
He remains this enigmatic figure. After teaching Neville and Murphy through the 30s, he seems to, well, vanish from public view.
Really? Where did he go?
The stories vary. Some say he returned to Ethiopia. Others speculate about connections to other figures, like Rabbi Arnold Josiah Ford, a prominent black Jewish leader of the time. Researchers still dig through archives, trying to piece together more about Professor Abdullah.
That obscurity, it adds to his mystique, doesn't it?
It really does. He's almost like an alchemical catalyst. Like Melchizedek in the Bible, this priest-king figure who appears, imparts crucial wisdom or a blessing, and then disappears without a clear lineage. Abdullah had that quality.
But the effects of his teaching, they're undeniable and lasting.
Absolutely. He
Yeah.
clearly lived to teach, not for personal fame, and his impact lives on powerfully through Murphy and Neville.
That chain of inspiration we talked about, it's still going. You hear those phrases today. Assume the feeling, act as if, don't dig up the seed.
So many of those core self-help manifesting cliches, you can trace elements right back to Abdullah's original lessons, delivered decades ago.
So his ripple effect, it just spread out across the world, woven into the success philosophies of the last century and even now.
Quietly, subtly, but definitely there.
When you look at Joseph Murphy's encounter with Abdullah, it really is so much more than just some interesting historical footnote in the New Thought movement.
It feels bigger than that, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's this really inspiring reminder, I think, of how just one person, one mentor, can fundamentally change the entire direction of someone's life. It makes me think of, Santiago meeting the alchemist in Paulo Coelho's book.
That's a great comparison. Murphy found his guide in Abdullah, someone who showed him where the real treasure was inside his own mind, his own subconscious.
Abdullah taught him, and Neville too, that imagination isn't just fantasy, it's God in action. That faith isn't blind hope. It's loyalty to the unseen reality.
And that the kingdom of heaven isn't somewhere else. It's truly within us. Murphy grabbed onto that, internalized it, and built this global ministry, teaching people how to access that inner kingdom for a better life.
It's kind of amazing when you step back and think about the convergence. An Ethiopian mystic, an Irish-American spiritual seeker, a Barbadian dancer turned metaphysician.
All meeting in 1930s New York City.
Exchanging this profound wisdom that would end up lifting the sights and spirits of millions of people across the globe. It really speaks to the universal nature of this truth, doesn't it?
It does. Beyond race, background, nationality, kindred spirits find each other. That old saying feels so true here. When the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Murphy was definitely ready, and Abdullah appeared right on cue.
Perfect timing.
And so for you listening today, if you pick up a Joseph Murphy book, maybe you try one of his visualization exercises, or perhaps you listen to an old Neville Goddard lecture and feel that spark, that inspiration to live in the end. You are, in a very real sense, tapping into that exact same lineage. You're participating in it. It's almost like you're sitting there, metaphorically, in Abdullah's living room, being a student of the very principles he taught.
The form might change, the language gets updated, but the essence is still there.
Exactly, that core message. All things are possible to the one who believes. Assume the best for yourself. Feel it as real now. Plant only the seeds of what you truly desire in the garden of your mind.
And crucially, don't doubt. Don't dig them up.
Yeah.
Trust that they will bloom in their own time and their season.
Maybe the final thought to leave everyone with comes from that idea of mentorship and encounter.
Yeah.
We can all take a page from this story, perhaps. Remember that no matter how far we think we need to travel or how many books we read, sometimes it's that single encounter, that one mentor who really sees us, who believes in us,
Right.
or maybe just a single phrase that lands that lights up our soul. That's what unlocks our potential.
It's often something unexpected that makes the biggest difference.
Joseph Murphy met his mentor, Abdullah, and found his path, his personal legend, to borrow Coyle's term again. May we all be so fortunate in our own ways. And maybe the best way to honor those who guide us is to actually use what we learn, use it to create a better reality, first for ourselves, and then maybe that ripples out to others.
That really is the enduring legacy, isn't it? Of Abdullah, of Murphy, of Neville. It's a living demonstration.
A demonstration of what?
That imagination, when it's coupled with unwavering faith,
Yeah.
well, that's an alchemy that truly can transform your world.